It is 4:30 in the morning. No alarm went off, no phone was checked, no notification pulled this person out of sleep. They simply woke up the way humans have woken up for thousands of years because their body knew it was time. What you're about to see is a morning routine, but not the kind you've been sold, not the biohacker's stack of supplements and cold plunges, not the productivity guru's 5-step formula, not a $300 light therapy lamp. This is the morning routine of people who have been doing the same things, the same deliberate, unhurried, deeply human things every single morning for over 300 years. And here's what's remarkable. Modern science, neuroscience, chronobiology, positive psychology, nutritional research, social science has recently begun publishing studies that validate these practices. One by one, finding after finding. Not because researchers were studying the Amish, most of them weren't, but when you lay the data alongside the practice, the match is almost exact. 7 morning practices the Amish have never questioned, never tried to optimize, never put in a productivity app. And 7 bodies of scientific research that say they were right all along. I want to say something before we start because I think it's important. I am not here to tell you that the Amish have it all figured out. I'm not here to romanticize a community or pretend that their way of life is without complexity. What I am here to tell you is this: there is a pattern, and when I started mapping it against science, I could not stop. Because the findings don't just agree with these practices in several cases, the science suggests that what the Amish do every morning is the closest thing to an optimized human morning that modern research has found, not on purpose, just through 3 centuries of living correctly. That is either the most humbling thing I've ever researched or the most exciting. I think it's both. Let's go through all 7. Stay with me because I have a promise to fulfill at the end of this video and I will keep it. First, I'm going to walk you through all 7 Amish morning practices in detail, not as a lifestyle piece but as a genuine investigation. What they do, why they do it, how it works in their daily life. Second, for each practice, I'm going to show you the specific science that validates it. Real studies, real fields of research. Not some experts say, actual findings from chronobiology, neuroscience, positive psychology, and nutritional science that align almost perfectly with what these people have always done. Third, and this is the promise I want you to hold me to at the end of this video, I'm going to give you something practical. A framework. 7 specific things grounded in both Amish practice and modern science that you can begin tomorrow morning. Not a product, not a course, just the distilled version of what we learn together in the next 30 minutes. I'll say that again so you can hold me accountable. By the end of this video, you will have a morning framework built from 300 years of practice and the best of modern science, both together in your hands. Stay until the end, I keep my promises. Before we get to what the Amish do, I need to spend 2 minutes on what most of us do because the contrast is the whole story. The average person in 2025 wakes up and checks their phone within 30 seconds. Within 3 minutes, they've seen news, social media, emails, or notifications. Their nervous system, which spent the night in a state of deep restoration, is now flooded with cortisol, comparison, and low-grade urgency. Before they've stood up, before they've had water, before they've taken a single deliberate breath. This is not a moral failure, it's a design failure. The phone was designed to do exactly this. But here's what the research now shows us. That first 30 to 90 minutes after waking is arguably the most neurologically significant window of your entire day. What you do in that window sets the hormonal, emotional, and cognitive tone for everything that follows, and most of us are detonating it with a scroll. Studies from the American Psychological Association confirm that phone-first mornings are correlated with elevated anxiety, reduced focus, and lower reported well-being across the day, not from phone use generally, but specifically from phone use as the first act of the morning. Meanwhile, 3 states away from modern life in Lancaster County and across the Midwest, people have been getting that window exactly right for centuries, without knowing the neuroscience, without reading a single study. Because their community, their faith, and their way of life built the right habits long before science had a language for them. Here's what they do. The Amish do not own alarm clocks, or rather many don't rely on them. They wake with the natural progression of light, typically between 4:30 and 5:30 a.m. depending on the season, the farm, and the family. The body, in an environment without artificial light pollution and without late-night screen exposure, simply knows. The circadian rhythm, the internal 24-hour biological clock, functions the way it was designed to function. In Amish households, there are no glowing screens before bed, no LED overhead lights running until midnight. When the sun goes down, activity slows. Candles or gas lamps provide the minimal warm-toned light that allows the body to begin its natural melatonin cascade, the hormonal sequence that prepares sleep. When morning comes, the light again is natural. The body wakes because the body is ready. The science, chronobiology, and circadian health. Chronobiology is the study of biological time, the science of how living organisms are governed by internal clocks. And what it has found in the last 2 decades is both fascinating and deeply uncomfortable for anyone who stays up late with blue light in their face. The circadian rhythm is not a preference. It is a physiological system that governs hormone release, immune function, cellular repair, cognitive performance, metabolism, and mood. When it is disrupted by irregular sleep, by artificial light at night, by alarm-forced waking, the consequences compound over time. Researchers at Harvard Medical School have published findings linking chronic circadian disruption to elevated rates of depression, obesity, cardiovascular disease, and cognitive decline. But here's the specific finding that stopped me cold. A 2019 study published in PLOS One, tracking over 250,000 participants, found that people who described themselves as morning types, people whose wake time aligned naturally with sunrise, showed measurably higher levels of well-being, life satisfaction, and reported happiness compared to those with disrupted or artificially forced morning schedules. The correlation was independent of total sleep hours. It wasn't just about how much they slept, it was about when and how they woke. The Amish don't know what chronobiology is, but every single variable in their morning, no late-night artificial light, no screens, natural wake, outdoor activity within the first hour, maps perfectly onto what chronobiologists describe as ideal circadian support. What this means for us. You don't have to wake at 4:30, you don't have to farm. But the principle is transferable. The first act of your body every morning should be determined by light, not by a notification. Even a small shift, blackout curtains at night, no screens for 30 minutes before sleep, letting morning light hit your eyes within 15 minutes of waking, begins to reset what chronic artificial light exposure has disrupted. This is not woo, this is circadian science, and the Amish have been living it for 3 centuries. Before an Amish household becomes active, there is quiet. Most Amish families begin the morning with a period of personal prayer or silent reflection, typically 10 to 30 minutes. This is not a communal event, it's private, interior, unhurried, a deliberate holding of stillness before the demands of the day arrive. For the Amish, this practice is rooted in faith in the Gelassenheit, the German concept at the heart of Amish spirituality that roughly translates as yielding or letting go. The morning quiet is not a productivity practice. It is a spiritual one, but what it produces in the body and brain is now measurable. The science, default mode network, and cortisol regulation. When you wake up, your brain moves through a transitional state called the hypnopompic period, the window between sleep and full wakefulness. During this window, the brain is in a highly receptive, lightly dissociated state. Theta waves are still present. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thought, planning, and emotional regulation, is not yet fully online. What happens to this window determines a great deal about your emotional baseline for the rest of the day. If it is immediately filled with external stimulus, news, social comparison, to-do lists, interpersonal demands, the limbic system, the brain's emotional center, takes control before the prefrontal cortex has caught up. The result is a day that begins in a mild but persistent state of reactivity. Neuroscientists refer to the brain's resting state as the default mode network, the neural activity that occurs when the mind is not directed outward. Far from being idle, the default mode network is where the brain performs its most important integration work, consolidating memory, processing emotion, constructing identity and meaning. Research from Washington University School of Medicine has shown that the default mode network is most active and effective when the mind is given time to rest in low-stimulus conditions, precisely the conditions the Amish morning quiet creates. Meanwhile, a meta-analysis published in Psychoneuroendocrinology found that morning mindfulness practices, even as brief as 10 minutes, measurably reduce the cortisol awakening response, the spike of stress hormone that peaks in the first 30 to 45 minutes after waking. Lower cortisol awakening response is associated with reduced anxiety, better immune function, and improved cardiovascular markers across the day. The Amish call it prayer, neuroscientists call it default mode network activation. The brain doesn't distinguish. What this means for us. 10 minutes, that's all the data requires. 10 minutes of genuine silence, no podcast as background, no news just to check, no phone before you speak to anyone or begin any task. The research does not demand 30 minutes of meditation. It requires only that you give your brain the transition time it was designed to have. The Amish do this naturally, we have to choose it deliberately, but we can. The Amish practice earn your meal. In an Amish household, breakfast is earned. Before the morning meal, which is typically substantial and communal, there are chores. Animals to feed, barns to muck, water to draw, wood to split, soil to tend. An hour or more of functional full-body movement happens before a single bite of food. This is not exercise in the modern sense. There are no sets, no reps, no heart rate targets. It is simply work, the kind of sustained, varied, purposeful physical activity that has characterized human mornings since before agriculture. The body does what it was built to do: move, carry, bend, lift, walk. The science, metabolic priming and BDNF. Exercise science has known for years that morning movement improves cognitive function, mood, and metabolic efficiency. But recent research has sharpened exactly why, and the findings are striking. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, is a protein that functions essentially as fertilizer for the brain. It promotes the growth of new neurons, protects existing neural connections, and is directly linked to learning, memory consolidation, and mood regulation. Low BDNF levels are associated with depression, anxiety, and age-related cognitive decline. High BDNF levels are associated with resilience, clarity, and emotional stability. The single most powerful trigger for BDNF release identified in current research is sustained aerobic physical activity, and its effect is most pronounced when the activity occurs in the morning before eating, in natural light. A 2021 study in the journal Neuroscience found that even moderate-intensity morning movement, nothing more demanding than a vigorous walk, produced BDNF increases of 20–30% that persisted for up to 5 hours post-exercise. What the Amish morning chore routine produces is, neurochemically, one of the most optimized cognitive and emotional preparation sequences a human being can perform, not because it was designed that way, but because it happens to hit every variable the science requires: morning timing, natural light, sustained moderate intensity, purposeful context. And they've been doing it every single morning for 300 years, not for BDNF, because the cows need feeding. What this means for us. You don't have a barn, but you have a body, and you have 15 to 30 minutes before your first meal, a walk. A real walk outside in whatever light exists at a pace that slightly elevates your breath, done before breakfast, produces the same BDNF cascade the Amish morning earns from their chores. Not an exact replication, but the same neurochemical principle, available to anyone anywhere for free. The Amish practice communal cooked whole. The Amish breakfast is not a protein bar grabbed from a drawer. It is a cooked, communal whole food meal, typically eggs from their own hens, homemade bread, preserved vegetables, whole milk, sometimes meat. It is made from scratch from ingredients they produced or traded locally, and it is eaten together, every morning, as a household. There is no concept of "I'll just skip breakfast today." There is no intermittent fasting protocol. There is no calorie tracking. There is just food, real food, nutrient-dense food, food prepared with hands that understand where it came from, placed on a table and shared with people they love. The science: GLYCAMIC, rhythm, nutrition density, and social EATING. The science here is operating on 3 levels simultaneously, and all 3 align with the Amish practice. First, glycemic rhythm. Research published in the International Journal of Obesity found that consuming your largest caloric intake earlier in the day, front-loading nutrition toward morning, is associated with lower body weight, better insulin sensitivity, and more stable energy and mood across the day compared to backloading calories into the evening. The Amish, who have a large breakfast, a moderate midday meal, and a lighter supper, are running exactly this pattern, not by design, but because their work schedule and tradition align with what the body's metabolic rhythm actually prefers. Vegetables, whole milk, sometimes meat. It is made from scratch from ingredients they produced or traded locally, and it is eaten together every morning as a household. There is no concept of "I'll just skip breakfast today." There is no intermittent fasting protocol. There is no calorie tracking. There is just food, real food, nutrient-dense food, food prepared with hands that understand where it came from, placed on a table and shared with people they love. The science: GLYCAMIC, rhythm, nutrition density, and social EATING. The science here is operating on 3 levels simultaneously, and all 3 align with the Amish practice. First, glycemic rhythm. Research published in the International Journal of Obesity found that consuming your largest caloric intake earlier in the day, front-loading nutrition toward morning, is associated with lower body weight, better insulin sensitivity, and more stable energy and mood across the day compared to backloading calories into the evening. The Amish, who have a large breakfast, a moderate midday meal, and a lighter supper, are running exactly this pattern, not by design, but because their work schedule and tradition align with what the body's metabolic rhythm actually prefers. Second, food quality. Whole eggs from pasture-raised hens contain a nutrient profile: choline, omega-3s, fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K that commercially processed breakfast alternatives simply do not replicate. Fermented or traditionally leavened bread has a glycemic impact and prebiotic profile that mass-produced sliced bread does not. The Amish eat better in the morning not because they're following a nutrition protocol, but because their food supply is what human food supply looked like before industrial processing changed it. Third, and this one I find most remarkable: social eating. A 2017 study from Oxford University's Robin Dunbar found that eating with others is one of the strongest predictors of life satisfaction, sense of belonging, and psychological resilience, stronger than reported income, stronger than reported health, stronger even than reported relationship quality in some cohorts. Communal eating activates oxytocin pathways, reduces cortisol, and builds the kind of social bonding that buffers against anxiety and depression. The Amish eat together every morning. Science says that alone may be one of the most powerful things they do. What this means for us: 2 things. 1. Eat actual food for breakfast, not a nutrition product. Eggs, whole grains, real fat, food your great-grandmother would recognize. It doesn't need to be elaborate, it needs to be real. 2. Whenever possible, eat it with someone: a partner, a child, a housemate, a phone call with a friend if needed. The social component of the meal is not a nicety, it is, according to the data, one of the most health-relevant choices you make all day. Practice 5. THUI, set intention, not schedule. The Amish practice purpose before productivity. The Amish do not use planners, productivity apps, or time-blocking systems, but every morning before work separates the household, there is a brief, informal articulation of the day's purpose: what needs doing, who is responsible, what matters most today. Not a meeting, not a schedule, just a quiet, grounded orientation toward the day's meaning and direction. This is, in Amish culture, inseparable from the spiritual dimension, the sense that one's daily work is not just productive but meaningful within a larger frame. Every task, every furrow plowed, every jar sealed, every garment sewn carries purpose beyond the task itself. The morning orientation grounds that sense of purpose before the first moment of work. The science: implementation, INTNTIONS, and meaning. In psychology, this practice maps almost exactly onto what researchers call implementation intentions, and the data on their effect is remarkable. Implementation intentions are mental plans that specify when, where, and how a person intends to pursue a goal. Research by Peter Gallwitzer at New York University found that people who form even brief, simple implementation intentions, today, I will do X when Y situation arises, complete their goals at rates 2 to 3 times higher than people with equivalent motivation who do not form them. The morning articulation of purpose that Amish families engage in is, functionally, a communal implementation intention practice. But there's a deeper layer. Research from the field of positive psychology, specifically Viktor Frankl's foundational work on meaning, extended by Martin Seligman and colleagues, has consistently found that the perception of meaningful work is one of the strongest predictors of psychological well-being, resilience, and resistance to burnout. Not interesting work. Not well-paid work, meaningful work, work that the person believes is connected to something larger than themselves. Amish people, studies of their communities consistently report some of the highest rates of life satisfaction and lowest rates of depression of any measured group in North America. This is despite or perhaps because of the absence of virtually every material comfort that modern psychology once assumed was necessary for well-being. The meaning, it turns out, was doing the heavy lifting all along. What this means for us. Before your day begins, before the first task, the first meeting, the first message, ask yourself one question: what is the most meaningful thing I can do today? Not the most urgent, not the most expected, the most meaningful. Write it down or say it aloud. That's it. That is the minimum viable version of what the Amish do every morning, and the data says it will change your day. Practice 6. They work with their hands. The Amish practice manual craft every day. Every Amish adult, regardless of age, regardless of seniority, regardless of the season, works with their hands every single morning. This is not optional, not a hobby, not a weekend project. It is the structure of their lives. A carpenter shapes wood, a farmer turns soil, a woman cards wool or bakes bread or preserves the harvest. The hands are always occupied with something that will become something else. This is manual craft in its most fundamental sense, transformative work, work where raw material enters and finished goods emerges. Work where the progress is visible and the product is tangible. The Amish do not sit in front of screens moving symbols, they make things every day with their hands. The science, flow state, and the craftsman neural loop. The psychological research on manual craft is one of the most consistently surprising bodies of literature I have encountered. The findings are so uniform and so strong that they have moved from occupational therapy into mainstream mental health treatment. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's decades of research on what he termed flow, the state of complete absorption in a challenging but manageable task, found that manual skilled work is among the most reliable flow state triggers available to human beings. Conditions for flow. Clear goal, immediate feedback. The challenge is slightly above current ability. Handcraft produces all three simultaneously every time. A 2016 study published in the British Journal of Occupational Therapy surveyed over 3,500 people who engaged in regular knitting, a simple manual craft, and found that frequent knitters reported significantly higher calm, happiness, and reduced anxiety compared to non-knitters. The researchers described knitting as producing a state of relaxed alertness, characterized by calm, clarity, and a sense of productive satisfaction that maps almost exactly onto what meditation researchers call the alpha wave state. But there is something deeper still. Neuroscientist Kelly Lambert's research on what she calls the effort-driven rewards circuit found that the combination of physical effort and visible, tangible results, precisely the structure of manual craft, activates the striatum and nucleus accumbens in a way that abstract, screen-based work does not. This circuit is directly linked to the regulation of depression. Lambert's hypothesis, now supported by multiple lines of evidence, is that the epidemic of depression in developed nations is at least partly driven by the disappearance of meaningful manual work from daily life. The Amish have not lost it, they never gave it up. What this means for us. Make something with your hands before noon, not a task completed on a screen, something that exists in the physical world that didn't exist before your hands made it. Bake bread, plant something, build something, repair something. Draw something by hand, carve, knit, paint, cook, fix. The material and the craft don't matter. What matters is the loop, effort, transformation, visible result. Your brain was built for this. I am still hungry for it. Practice 7. THUI begin and end in community. The Amish practice, no one faces the day alone. The final practice, and I've saved it for last because I believe it is the most important, is this: no Amish person begins their day alone. This sounds simple, but consider what it actually means. In a society where loneliness has been declared a public health epidemic by the U.S. Surgeon General, where research shows that a significant percentage of adults report having no one to confide in, the Amish begin every single morning embedded in a web of human connection. Family at the breakfast table. Neighbors visible across the field. A community that will check in, work alongside, gather for meals, and share the weight of the day. The morning is the social anchor of Amish life. It is when the community reassembles after sleep, when children are reminded they are loved, when elders are honored with presents, when the day's shared purpose is acknowledged between people who genuinely depend on each other, not as a productivity exercise, as a way of being human. The science, social baseline theory, and loneliness. Social baseline theory, developed by James Cone at the University of Virginia, proposes that the human nervous system evolved to function optimally when embedded in social connection. Cone's research found that the mere physical presence of a trusted person, not even interaction, just presence, measurably reduces the brain's threat response, lowers cortisol, and decreases the metabolic cost of navigating the world. We are not built to be alone. Social connection is not a bonus feature of a good life, it is the nervous system's default expectation. When we begin our days alone, as increasing numbers of adults in developed countries do, we are asking our nervous systems to do more work than they were designed to do. The result is a low-grade but persistent activation of the threat response, a background hum of vigilance that never fully shuts off. That hum is what many people call stress, what many people call anxiety, what many people, when it has gone on long enough, call depression. The research of John Cacioppo on loneliness found that chronic social isolation carries health costs equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The U.S. Surgeon General's 2023 advisory on the loneliness epidemic described it as a growing public health crisis of significant consequence, with rates having doubled in the United States in the past 20 years. The Amish are structurally immune to this epidemic, not because they're extraordinary people, but because their morning and their entire social architecture makes isolation impossible. The community is the infrastructure, and every morning they rebuild it together. What this means for us. Begin your morning with a human being, not a podcast voice, not a character in a show, a real person, a family member, a friend, a neighbor. Even a brief, genuine exchange, not a transaction, not a notification check-in, but actual presence, activates the social baseline and begins your nervous system's day in the mode it was designed for. This is not about productivity, it's about being human in the way humans were built to be. I told you at the beginning of this video that I would keep a promise, that by the end you would have a morning framework built from 300 years of Amish practice and the best of modern science that you could begin tomorrow. I keep my promises. Here it is: 7 things, 7 minutes to read, a lifetime to build. 1. Wake with the light. No phone for the first 15 minutes, if possible. Let natural light reach your eyes within 20 minutes of waking. Remove overhead artificial light from your evening, candles, warm lamps, nothing blue after sunset. Give your circadian rhythm the signal it was designed to receive. 2. Hold the silence. 10 minutes before you speak, check anything or consume any content. Sit, breathe, let the default mode network do what it needs to do. Prayer, reflection, simple stillness, the form doesn't matter, the neurochemical outcome is identical. 3. Move your body before you eat. A walk, a real one outside at a pace that moves your breath. 20 minutes minimum before your first meal. This is not exercise, this is BDNF. This is the cognitive and emotional preparation your brain was designed to receive from morning movement. Do it before you eat and in natural light for maximum effect. 4. Eat real food with real people. As close to whole, unprocessed food as your life allows, and eat it with someone whenever possible. Both dimensions matter. Nutrition front-loads your metabolism correctly. The company activates your oxytocin system and your sense of belonging. Together, they set a biochemical and social tone for the day that nothing else replicates. 5. Set your intention. One question every morning: what is the most meaningful thing I can do today? Write it. Say it aloud. Form the implementation intention. Research shows you are 2 to 3 times more likely to do the thing that actually matters if you have articulated it clearly before your day's noise arrives. 6. Make something with your hands. Before noon, engage in at least one instance of manual, transformative work. Bake, build, grow, repair, draw, cook. Activate the effort-driven rewards circuit. Trigger flow. Give your brain the tangible, visible result it has been hungry for since before the Industrial Revolution removed this from daily life. 7. Begin in community. Start your day with another human being, not a screen persona, a real person. A genuine exchange brief is fine that reminds your nervous system that you are embedded in the social fabric it evolved within. You are not alone. Your brain needs to know that before it does anything else. That is the framework. 7 practices, 300 years of evidence, multiple bodies of modern science. You don't need to implement all 7 tomorrow. Pick one, the one that feels most urgent, the one that addresses the gap you already know is there. Build that one until it's yours, then add the next. The Amish didn't design this morning, they inherited it and they protected it. We have to choose it, but the choice is available every morning. If you made it here, I want to say something directly to you. Most people will not watch a 35-minute video until the end. You did. That means something about who you are. It means you're the kind of person who takes this seriously, not as a trend, not as content consumption, but as a genuine investigation into how to live better. Those are the people this channel exists for, and if that's you, please subscribe, not because the algorithm rewards it, though it does, but because I'm building something here over time, and if today's video gave you even one thing you'll carry into tomorrow morning, there's more coming that I think you'll want to be a part of. Now the comment I'm asking you to leave, and I want to be specific. Of the 7 practices in this video, which one is most absent from your current morning, not which one you plan to add, which one you know you're missing most? Because I genuinely want to know. I read every comment on this channel. Not as a formality, your answers shape what I research and build next. If you're watching this and thinking of someone, a friend, a partner, someone you know who is struggling with anxiety, burnout, or that persistent sense of disconnection, send them this video. Not with a message, just send it. Sometimes a video says what we haven't found words for yet. And if you want to go deeper on anything we covered today, the science, the Amish community, the framework, the next video goes further. I'll see you there. Take care of your mornings, they take care of everything else.